Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Duck Dogs. I'm your host, Josh Miller, and before we get going, as always, we need to thank our wonderful partners here that make this show possible. So thank you to Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that we have our dogs on, both at the kennel and my personal dogs, especially as we kind of grind through training season here. It's so important to have the right nutrition fueling these dogs to make them not only perform at their peak level, but also recovery, coat, energy level, everything across the board. www.eukanuba.com. Again, Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food we have our dogs on. Thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs as it pertains to your four-legged hunting partner. They're great company, great people, great products. You will not be disappointed. www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to, now we'll go to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel, both in the intermediate and in the large size. So no matter how big or small your hunting partner is, you can be sure that they're traveling as safe as possible. And they just came out with the new medium size. So even if you have a smaller dog, you can be sure that they have the right kennel for them. So also the medium is going to be a 5-star crash test rated as well. So medium, intermediate, and large. www.luckyduck.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent is our go-to option for our hunting loads in the field. But then also, as we hit the training fields, we have the blanks, which are a great tool for those of you that are wanting to use the gun desensitization or gun sounds, but don't want the dangers that come with projectiles coming out at the end of that barrel. So www.kentcartridge.com. Make sure you pick up your blanks for your training season. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for outdoor clothing. We all know about how great Sitka Gear is out in the field for our hunts, but also as we are training, we love wearing that Sitka Gear out in the field. It just keeps us in the field more comfortable for longer. www.sitkagear.com. Last but not least, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your go-to option for training your own dog at home. With a video-based library, a fantastic community, one-on-one Zoom calls, there are just so many things that make the program so valuable if you are training your own dog at home. Go check it out, and you can get in there for as little as $29 a month. www.retrieverroadmap.com. All right, everybody. Well, we are back in the studio here today, and I know it's been a little bit here, probably 2 weeks or so, since I have been behind the microphone and in our quote-unquote studio, a.k.a. my office. But it's just been a lot going on. We've had 4th of July in there. We've had intermediate, our first intermediate class of the year for the kennel going home. I've had an injury, which I can talk a little bit about. I'm not real excited about it, but just a lot going on. And so I've been trying to get back in here and get some episodes recorded. But we had an idea that we're going to start implementing here today, which I think is going to help a lot of things. It's going to help me stay consistent. It's going to help me I should say, add some more opinion, some more maybe context and idea. But we had this idea of bringing in the team at the kennel at Riverstone and just sitting down and, whether we do this once a week, once every other week, and just kind of talking through maybe the week that we've had, some situations that we've had come up. And I'll tell you what it really helps me with. One, it helps me not have to stare at the wall and talk to myself for an hour. And then two, also helps me with topics. I do struggle with topics sometimes. And, when I do struggle with those topics, it can just be hard to get an episode that, what I believe anyways, is like truly valuable from a content basis. And so adding some new voices in here just periodically to bring some additional insight, I think is a good thing. So we have the guys here. We have Eric Shuddy, we have Dave Larson, and we have Zach Stennett here. So this is the team over at the kennel, and between the four of us, this is how we get all of our work done on a day-to-day basis at the kennel. So first off, thank you guys for taking the time and being here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is going to be awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to kind of have more of a conversation going with this, because as you guys know, it's hard for me sometimes to just like jet out of there, and then I just don't think I'm talented enough to just come in and like sit down and be like, okay, I've got 40 minutes. Let's just knock something out for 40 minutes, and at least like a true content, right? Of like really, really good stuff. And so that's where I struggle sometimes. And so for this, like, I just think this is so neat to have some different perspectives. And you guys are doing some things, as far as training goes. Like, I've got my advanced dogs. You guys are working, with some other dogs. So like, there's some situations that come up that I think could be really valuable from a learning experience from someone listening that I may not have even been a part of. And so I think it'll be a cool insight here. But before I get going, because not everybody knows you guys. And so I want to go over and just give a little bit of a background. Each one of you guys kind of go around here and just give us a little bit of a background as far as like, what you're doing at the kennel, your background, like leading up to that point. Talk about your personal dog. Just give everybody just kind of a little bit of a perspective. So Eric, you want to go ahead and start that off?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Again, my name is Eric Shuddy, and prior to meeting Josh and Whitney, I've been a school teacher for 26 years, and I've been in the classroom and coaching high school sports, and have had a passion for hunting and dogs, and I've always had a passion for training, just never had a mentor or somebody to teach me, and I've always wanted to do it myself, and I met you, and one thing led to another, and what you and Josh, or what you and Whitney have produced at Riverstone, I'm just glad to be an extension of this. And I started here last summer. I just worked the months of June and July and August, and one thing led to another, and I am now out of the classroom, and I am ecstatic to be full-time with you guys. And I just absolutely love getting up in the morning and coming here to work. And I think if you get to yourself in life with a job that you can do that, I mean, it's just like, you feel like I'm running the work all the time, because it's just so fun to get there. So yeah, we worked some stuff out, and I'm going to continue to coach in the evenings during the school year. And besides that, I have 2 dogs. I have a 3-year-old that is been trained, been really good hunting dog. That's my own personal line that I have. And then I have a 1-year-old female named Phoenix, Riverstone dog. And so both come with me every day to the kennel. Usually after hours, we start working the dogs, and we all have our own personal dogs. And that's kind of some of the fun times we have too in the evenings when we're done working. And we had a real good session last week where we all just kind of got together and ran our dogs together. So yeah, that's kind of my backstory a little bit. I got 3 sons who love to hunt and do stuff also. And I'm the guy from Minnesota that crosses the border to Wisconsin. So
you're the blue plate in the parking lot. You didn't know blue plate was even a thing until...
I didn't know until you guys told me, here comes the blue plater.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. I promise you, those people from Wisconsin listening did laugh at that.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
So, what's funny to me is that the way I see it anyways, you're still in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's just your classroom now doesn't have walls and has more sunshine, and you're working with 4-legged students instead of 2-legged.
That's a good point. When I started telling teachers I work with that this is gonna be my job change, I kept hearing, "We're so happy for it." And I thought it was just kind of fake, but after a while, what they were saying is they're happy for me to go do something that I'm passionate about And I think they kind of wish they could do the same thing. But everything I've done leading up to this point, from a leadership position to communication to teaching, it's all the same. It's just a whole nother different venue. Four-legged, the big thing with the dogs is they love seeing us every day. I'll be honest with you, I can't get all 30 people in my classroom to be happy to see me. So, and they listen better. That's kind of the joke too.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's all kind of the same, but it's just dealing with a whole nother different type of business. And not only the dogs, but I absolutely love dealing with the clients because we're all like-minded. And I think I love the passion in my dogs to get them where they want to be. And Zach and I were talking about this today a little bit. It's so fun to help these clients to get the dogs where they want them to. And that's just a blast to do that.
Yeah. And for me, that's kind of where I'm seeing you really kind of pop out and excel already. Is you can tell you have a connection with people. You have a passion for teaching people. And that probably comes from the background of teaching kids or coaching kids. But you can definitely see that. I mean, you're already implementing ideas into the kennel that we hadn't thought of, like, hey, let's use a smart board. And like the dog trainers and us are like, what's a smart board? I mean, I think there's some really cool stuff that you're bringing from your past now, into this job.
It's awesome. And then you got Dave here who's been here for a while. I can rely on him it's got so much knowledge in there from training piece. So this has been fun, and I'm looking forward to this podcast for us talking because, all three of us get along really well, and we all have different sort of backgrounds, and how we all came together in this room is actually pretty remarkable. And I'm looking forward to keeping working with these guys.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. So Dave, you want to jump over to you and give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so was milking cows. Josh was playing ball with me at the time, and he was talking about shed dogs, and it's like, well, I had no idea shed dogs was a thing. Asked if I could come join in one day. He's like, yep, let's do it. One thing led to another, and it's been 12 years, and we're still here training dogs and not milking cows.
12 years. It doesn't feel like we're old enough to say 12 years. It, what's funny is that I had to do a speaking engagement in Fargo Monday night. And that I said that there. Somebody said, how long have you been doing speaking engagements like this? And I had to count, and I was like, I think it's like 17 years. And I don't feel old enough to be able to say 17 years, but it has been. And I think is neat about kind of looking back on the history of this whole thing is that, Dave, you're the only one here that's kind of seen the growth and expansion of the kennel, of literally going back to, those junky 6 kennel runs that, we filed down to try to make look as nice as possible, to the purchase of the new property, to the building and so on and so on. And I think it's been interesting too, the difference in how we've had to kind of go about our business, right? So early on, there was a lot of, we had aggressive cases we were bringing in. We had, hodgepodge mixed breeds. I remember people bringing in dogs that were like, hey, this is a Springer, make him point. And we're like, well, that can't happen, and then today, we have a very, I think, different, clientele. And I think there's, some of my, fondest memories, I think back to, that dog named Willow. You remember Willow? Gosh, that had to have been over 10 years ago. That came in and was aggressive and was a court order thing of this dog gets helpers put down and prolonged that dog's life, right? And had a serious impact on that family. And so I love looking back on that time. But it's also neat to kind of streamline a little bit and go through and have all these dogs are pushing through this program together. They're all retrievers. The clients can come together even at the check-in side of things, do this together. You couldn't do that when it was a hodgepodge. So it's kind of interesting, just kind of that background and kind of that ebb and flow of just how this business has kind of progressed over time.
Right. Went from whatever we could get to let's try to work with, for lack of better terms, the best of the best if we can.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's interesting being selective, because, early on it was we'd have people no pay us. We'd have people, you just didn't know who you were dealing with. And now, like you said, you can be more selective about, the clients you work with. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the people, right? That's what we love, is the people and the relationships we can have and continue to have. And I think that's what makes this so special. And, you think about, I'm sure you have somebody off the top of your head. Well, one that comes to my head is John McCulley. Between him and his sons, and we've trained probably 7-8 dogs, for them. And there's other families that are just like that, and so it's just interesting, that history.
And all those families take our families in as their own, from letting us come down shed hunting to deer hunting their properties to whatever it is that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is pretty neat. It's a fun deal for sure, and obviously the dogs are the reason, but it's a morbid thing to think about, but the dogs do come and go, like especially now, because you've been working with the kennel for 12 years? So yeah, just think about all those dogs that went through bird and gun introduction 12 years ago are either not with us anymore or 12 years old.
Right.
We're hearing that's a weird thing. I started noticing that probably maybe 8 years ago. Just more and more of these emails are I just want to let you know, Chester passed away, had a great life, appreciate everything that time, that kind of stuff, and it's amazing how quickly you can recall that dog. Even for not seeing that dog for 10 years, you can recall that dog a lot of times.
Yeah.
Not every time, of course, but a lot of times, because they're just such a big part of your life while they're in.
It's crazy what you can think of if you just sit down and think about it for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. All right, Zach, so I think, didn't we have you on the podcast not too terribly long ago?
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, probably people probably know. But in case this is someone's first time listening to this thing, give us a little background on Zach Stinnett and how you kind of came to Riverstone.
Okay. So I served 6 years in special operations in the Army, and I was getting out of the Army. And prior to that, I had a dog from Riverstone, and we kind of built that relationship while I was in the Army, sending Zeb, one of my personal dogs, in for training. And I got out and was searching for my next mountain to climb, and this is a mountain that I chose to climb. I was kind of bouncing around from job to job, trying to see what fit me best, and we had been in kind of communication through the couple months that I was out of the military, and came to an agreement, and now I'm lucky enough to be here.
What I think is so neat, I'm not going to dig down, your, I think the military background is really fascinating to me. Not only from being grateful and thankful for your service, but also just from a holding yourself to a high standard, having high expectations of yourself and your teammates, above and beyond. Just so many things that come to mind. I won't dig down that too much because we did that just a few episodes ago. But one thing that I do want to point out, which has helped, I believe, has helped specifically Dave and I tremendously, and in turn, of course, the business. But both Zach and Eric, you guys came from client situations before you came into the team member roles. And I think from perspective, that's a very valuable thing, because the reality is that, Dave and I, having done this for as many years as we've done this, it's easy to get in routine. It's easy to not see the things that you don't see, right? And you don't know what you don't know, right? So for you guys, like Eric, for example, coming in and being like, I really think that we should send more photos of the dogs. And, for, Dave and I, of course, we're like, well, yeah, we want to be getting the work done. I'd rather get the work done than get an extra. We still do our weekly updates, right? Well, you've been in the situation that you're at home with the kids, with a dog gone, trying to, let the family know that, hey, Scout's okay. She's fine. She's happy. She's good, right? We have not been there. And so I just think from perspective, there's so much value to having been in your guys' shoes and now being in the team. And the changes that we've already made, I think, is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I can speak on that. Being a client, Scout, my oldest one, went to Bird and Gun. And then when you and I got to know each other more, and then I worked last summer, it was interesting for you and Dave and Whitney to ask questions, and I would give you perspective of my experience sitting at home for 3 weeks. And I think that helped you guys out a ton. And one thing leads to another. I didn't start here this summer until June 10th because school got out for me June 6th. last week was the first, our new class that came in. There may be some clients listening right now. Hopefully you got a picture, or something, send out when you get them. And I can't tell you, that picture is designed of whether it's a video or pictures. You can't, so many people replied, "Oh, thank you. The kids really like to see that."
Mm-hmm.
And that's a small part of this business, which I really like at Riverstone, is that it's more than just training. And that's what we're trying to do here. It's a place where you're comfortable to send your dog, and we'll give you the updates. This guy, Zach and Dave, do a good job with the updates, and I may be sending out pictures, just updates, because, that is a family pet at the end of the day for a lot of people, and it's just not it's there to train, but it's going to be taken care of.
I remember sitting on, I'd wake up at Friday, or wake up on a
100%.
Friday morning and be sitting there waiting for an email from Dave. And then now, so when we go in on Fridays or whatever day of the week we're doing updates, it's I know someone is sitting there waiting on this to get there.
Yeah, I was in that situation. You probably don't remember this, Josh, but when Scout was in here, it was a Friday evening, and you were real busy that day, and I was waiting for that email all day type of thing, but you just wait. It's exactly what you're saying. And these guys have been good with trying to get them out a little early. But, yeah, it's from the client perspective, that's their baby they gave to us, and it's more than, it is training, but it's just more than that.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. And to be honest with you, I think it's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bigger piece than the training side of it, is the people side of it. Because if you take into consideration the communication that has to be done, and then teaching them, which oftentimes is much more difficult than teaching the dog, just because the human, the dog is essentially the blank slate. Right? The human has, whether it's bad habits or a hesitancy to learn, or because we see that specifically with men, right? See that there's a little bit of that, call it ego, call it what you want, but a little bit of that, well, I'll go home and I'll figure it out. It's well, why not just do this here, right? We'll teach you, we'll help you. I personally just think that's a bigger part of the whole puzzle than even the dog side of it. I know that's why the dogs are in, of course, but I think it's a bigger piece of the whole puzzle.
I'm seeing more of that now. The training, we can train these dogs. Each one will have its difficulties, but we communicate those difficulties with the client. If they're having some, and we'll work through it. But it's that piece of getting to know the clients and letting them know their dogs are good. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to teaching the owner, big time. That's a big time deal, to make sure when they go home, this dog can do what we got it to do. And they will have some issues when they get home, and then we're always there to help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. So one thing that happened recently in the last couple of weeks, and this is kind of the goal of this, for those of you that are listening along here, I want to be able to try, kind of bring little nuggets into this thing of stuff that happened during the week, training situations, training scenarios, and maybe what happened, how we worked out of it. And I have some of those, but one thing I do want to dig into first is, we recently had our first intermediate class of the year go home. And that happened right before 4th of July, so about 2.5, 3 weeks ago-ish, somewhere in there. And there's always, I think there's always some interesting observations or stories that kind of come from those pickups, right? Because whether it's, the way that somebody came in and maybe had some learning hurdles themselves, maybe you saw a dog not want to transition, to the owner very, very smoothly, whatever it is. So Dave, was there anything that kind of stuck out to you this go around with, just the dogs that you had going home in that intermediate class? Anything that stood out to you as far as was there a theme, or was there anything, special that, just from an observation standpoint with you sending those dogs home?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I noticed was the dogs have been good for the first day and a half, not really testing. It's day 2 into 3 where the owners were noting they're not being as obedient as they were. Now they want to break, stuff like that, where in the past I didn't hear that as much as this year for whatever reason. And I would have thought this year would have been better having Zach on board for the majority of that first class, where there was more hands on deck before they went home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, I'd like to get your take on it too, but my take on that is, they spend a couple days with us training here, right? So they come here, they pick up the dog, they have our guidance, they have our tools, but then when you go home and you fly solo, naturally, unless you have a lot of experience in this, right, which some people do, but if you don't, I think it can be a little overwhelming, right? I think just from a people standpoint of like, whether it's like, I'm going to get nervous or I'm going to be unsure, I'm going to, I think that there's a lot there, from my perspective, I think that's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, I think these dogs, read out, there's a dog in Texas that it took the owner being up here for 3 days before they finally relaxed, and the dog did good for him. When he was uptight and anxious, dog didn't perform as well as it did for anybody else.
Yeah, the driver's a big deal. Like, you got to have the right driver of the car, right? And that's why I think it is so important spending the time that we spend with them, right? Like, this isn't a 30-minute thing, come get your dog. Like, we had one dog in particular this year that unfortunately, just due to extreme circumstances, we had to get the dog a ride home, and we didn't get to spend the time, with the owner. And now we did everything we possibly could as far as like mega video library to send home so you can see everything and learn everything and see she does it all. But it's not her that we were worried about, right? It's from an owner standpoint, like, are you on the same page, right? Because you start going and saying different commands, using tools like the leash in a different way, like, you're certainly not going to get the same response. So we didn't get that time, and I think that's a big deal. And for anyone at home that is listening and train your own dog, I really believe that is probably one of the biggest benefits that you have, is you're going through that step-by-step process. Like, yes, it may take longer. Yes, you may have more road bumps. Yes, you may not have the tools, the tech pond, the property, all the stuff. And I know it's easy sometimes to sit there and be like, gosh, I wish I had. But you also have the full experience, right? Like, naturally, when something happens in the field with an owner of a dog that has been, like, we don't get this very often, right? But like, once in a while, somebody will be like, hey, like 7-8 months, like, literally send them in all year because they've got stuff going on. They've got trips, they got travel, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they get them home and they bring them right out in the field hunting. Like, you're going to see something come up and you're not going to know how to respond, right? Because you weren't there. But like, if you went and did it, you're going to know, hey, I've seen this hurdle before in training. This is what I did to get over it. And you can get over it on the fly. That is one of the challenges. Now, I think there's a lot of pros to sending the dog in and getting it done, the way, because of all the stuff we just talked about, the tools, the property, the ponds, everything that we have access to. So and to the knowledge and the time to get this done repetitively and get it done well and get it done in time, right? But I every time I talk to someone, they're like, gosh, I don't know. I just wish I had. Like, you actually have a pretty valuable thing with that time, in your back pocket.
Yeah, I think those who choose to train on their own, you got to commend them on that. You got to make sure you are doing your research on it. We have a ton of Retriever Roadmap members that do it, and then they just contact us if they have any questions. We also have Retriever Roadmap members who do Retriever Roadmap and send their dog into us. But you only know what you know, and when the dog messes up, if you don't know how to fix that, you may not freak out a little bit. I just had a conversation with Zach over my youngest one this morning before work. I was doing some live bird work, and she was chomping a little bit. And I told him, I said, she was chomping at the bird, and I said a couple of years ago, I may have freaked out and said I didn't know what to do. I just stopped. I kind of knew what to do, and I was calm with it, and we'll just fix it later. But yeah, the owners learning how to do that is important. But I also believe a lot of these owners, if they have a dog, most of them are going to have another one down the road. I think the goal is for some of these owners who are doing it on their own is get really good at it, and then your second and your third dog is going to be that much better as you progress in life, because you only know what you know. And I just encourage all owners just to learn as much as you can, because especially dogs we send home, they can do all the things. It's just a matter of figuring out, and plus getting everybody in the house dialed in on the same stuff. I think that's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things to go off of everything you just said there. So first off, we have a client, Dakota, who had his dog Teal in, how long ago was that? 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5, 6.
Probably something like that. And Teal was a nice dog, for sure. But Dakota wanted that next level, that next step. And so he got the next dog, from us, and I think he's a straight puppy if I remember right. I can't remember off the top of my head. Kylo, yeah, and he's out there. He's passing master and finished tests, and he's doing a great job. And I sent him a message because I saw just on social of him passing these tests, and I know this was a goal for him. Like, man, like, awesome, congrats, man. You've worked your tail off on this. I love to see it. And I think he said something back like, yeah, it's great having the right student and the right dog. And then my response to that was, yeah, but think of what Teal taught you to get to this point, right? Like, let's not discredit that first dog. Like, that first dog taught you a lot of things. Like, it may have been positive, may have been negative, but like, I look at Easton, like, Easton taught me, I mean, enough that I'm sitting here with you guys today, but I mean, he was like, I literally got him how I preached, don't get a dog today, right? And he just turned out to be the dog I needed at the time to teach me the lessons I needed to be taught. And then you learn and you apply, and you that's what so many of these dogs do. And I feel like sometimes that first dog almost gets like tossed the wind a little bit. Oh yeah, they were fine, but this new dog, it's like, yeah, well, you probably didn't have the new dog if you did have that first dog. So that's one thing that came to mind. Two, it was interesting. You bring up Retriever Roadmap. So one of the things that I do in Roadmap is do offer Zoom calls to Plus members. Just giving them the opportunity, when I have openings in my schedule to, have Zoom calls, 20-minute calls, kind of go over like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what I'm doing. And I talked to a guy today, super nice guy. We'd never talked before. And he has a young dog that's about 6 months old. And this dog is just flying through things, like supernatural, has the right energy, has the right. And he's like, man, I've had 2 really nice dogs in the past, that I've got through handling, but like this dog is just flying through this thing. And I'm just curious, like, when do I throttle him back, and when do I let him, push forward, and so we kind of talk through, like, first off, like, obviously there's a lot of speculation that can be done on my end. Like, I didn't want to assume anything, so like, tell him, so I won't go into all that, but like, the point of it is go at the dog's speed. Like, I think we talk about that a lot on going slow, right? Like, Dave, you and I were just talking about that, a little bit ago, like going slow, like slow down, don't speed through this thing. And I think the reason we err on that side is because too often people want to just post on social media, right? They want to put up this, I want to show this double, I want to show the big water entry, I want to show the blind, I want to show all this stuff. And that's why we have to try to keep throttling everybody back of like obedience, right? Bring them back to what the foundation truly is. But this guy, I was like, man, like, it sounds to me like you've got a situation that you can keep pushing forward, right? And the best part about this is, like, you have your own time frame. You're on your own timeline. You don't have to go through, and this is the exact reason we could never have week 1 do this, week 2 do this, week 3 do this, because every dog is going to be so different. Like, this guy at 6 months old is doing stuff that probably at 9, 10 months old, people are usually doing. Right. And he's just so natural. He just keeps going on this stuff. It's like, well, why hold him back? Right. As long as you don't feel like you're putting the cart before the horse and there's going to be a train wreck somewhere. Right. Like, keep progressing. That's fantastic. And so I just think that's an interesting other side of it. Right. Because we talk so much about going slow. Right. But like, there's a situation right there that I thought was like, it was really interesting. It was a great conversation. But each one of these dogs is just so unique. I mean, for us, in the advanced class, like, we're sitting here right now with our advanced class, is like, one dog is certainly excelling, one dog is kind of lagging behind, and the rest of the group is kind of like all right in there. Do you agree with that, Zach?
Yep, I agree.
So with that being said, like, what we got to be careful on is that we're not holding the excelling dog back to the group. We're not unfairly trying to pull the dog that's lagging behind forward because of the group. And then with the mass group, we're not bringing them down to the lowest common denominator. We're also not pushing them forward unfairly that they're not ready for. Like, we do have to individualize, a little bit. And I think that's something that I think it's a little easier when you have one dog, right? When you have a class, that gets a little tougher. But it's something that it's part of the challenge that we have,
And I think, like, that's something that I've noticed big time coming over and doing this for a career, is like, we always talk about getting 1% better every day, 1% better every day, but what does that look like, right? Like, before coming here and seeing 36 dogs a day, you don't really know what 1% better looks like. So I've really taken a lot from Dave, for sure, because we'll hit a situation or whatever, and he'll be like, "Well, we'll just do this and get over it." And not everyone has that luxury to understand what that's like or to see that many dogs happen. So I can definitely understand how it's easy to freak out about stuff like that.
Mhm. Well, and think about 1% better, right? And really, if we're all being real, like that's what we should all be striving for every day. Like, all right, let's just go 1% better. Be better than who you were yesterday, right? Whether that's us personally, whether it's the dogs we're training, right? And the problem is that at some point, 1% better all of a sudden doesn't feel like a whole lot,
Right.
right? Especially if you're holding yourself to a high standard. All of a sudden, 1% is like, man, I want to be 10% better today. Well, that's probably not realistic, right? And like that's what I struggle with. Like I'll get to a point that I'm like, all right, get a little better, get a little better, get a little better, and then all of a sudden I'm looking around being like, man, I think I should be doing this, right? Not here. And I'm talking about personally, personal stuff, personal hobbies, whatever. But I that's why I feel like the over communication to clients is so important, because if all of a sudden there's no communication for a month, and then you come back and give an update, like there could be some of that, like, that's all you've done, this month,
Right.
Because just with expectations, like, man, if I haven't heard from you, I don't know what you're doing, don't know how you're doing it. Like, 1% better. Okay, so should I be 30% better right now? Should I be 15% better? Should I be 100% better? Like, what does that look like, right? And I think that can be a tough one, for people, at home. All right, so let's get into. So we had was there anything with that intermediate class, Dave, that you want to talk about or miss? I know I kind of skipped over that one a little bit.
Every dog's a little different. That whole class we had a group of brothers and sisters that kind of pushed ahead a little bit, so we kept pushing those, and then you had a couple that were maybe a little younger that you tailored to them to get them to the same level as the other two or other group. Good.
I always think what's so funny about bringing the owners back into it, doesn't matter if it's check in or go home or what have you. Some of these dogs, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who's stepping in, doesn't matter who. Like, they're all right, let's go do our job. And then there's some that just like melt down. You love to see it, right? You love to see the dogs, love to see the owners again, but like, it's also frustrating because you're like, man, let's go do our job, right? And we saw a little bit of that, today, Zach. With we had the advanced clients come in, do a check-in with us, and I actually have enjoyed the group check-ins. I didn't know how I would like it. I really like it because it gives people, I think, more of an opportunity to see more dogs run, more people handle, and then like as we're coaching, John Smith over here, you may hear something that you're like, oh man, I could do that too, right? I think there's more observation learning that comes from it, so I like that. But we had one today that, I mean, I had no idea that she would, just be like so gaga over seeing him, and he was, like, she's like jumping up on him, and I'm like, like, I've never seen her jump up on anybody, right? And he's like, she only does this to me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, but he's like, I just love that she loves me this much. It's like, okay, like I get it. I kind of see where this is, this is coming from, but it's interesting. Like, some dogs transfer so easy, and some dogs don't,
And that is a perfect dog for him, too.
Oh yeah, it really is. I mean, that is a perfect fit. And then you've got a dog. I'm sure Greg is listening, but you get a dog like Ember that's like, Greg's standing right there, and she does not care. She's like, let me do my job. Let me do my job. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Okay, so now we have that 4th of July break. We come back. New intermediate class comes in. So this is the first time Zach has been around for a class drop off. Not true, because you were around for advanced, but intermediate.
Right.
First time Eric's been around for a class drop off. Right. What maybe some first early on observations of dogs, like, and these can be general statements, right? Like, what do you see, when these dogs are coming in? Are they better than you expected? Maybe rustier than you expected, not prepared, over prepared? What are some thoughts?
I think a lot of it comes off of the way we put the leash on them, like just using the slip lead the proper way. Because a lot of times the dog will come up to the door just pulling the owner up, and then any of us go out back and have the leash on correctly and are walking slow and relaxed, and the dog acts completely different, and in one day. and obviously they may not know what they're doing, but I think just the way our mental approach to it, maybe, or that we're so calm and kind of understand what's going on. I think I noticed that pretty quick with this class.
Yeah, it'll come down to obedience again. And I think a lot of the clients maybe think their dog is to a certain point, and it really isn't. We know within the 2 seconds as soon as we put that lead on
Yeah.
where they're at. And it's amazing if you do it correctly. We're in the process of walking dogs up and down. Every dog gets out on a lead, and it doesn't take them long. And but if you do it right, and hey, we're gonna have some fun and go on a walk here, but we're gonna do it correctly. And that's probably the biggest thing is the clients that have done an outstanding job with a lot of that obedience really progresses their dog in a little bit quicker within reason. It helps us out, and those who aren't, we just have to take a few more, days to get them dialed in, because we can't progress until we get that foundation solid.
We have had dogs, Dave, I'm sure you can think of quite a few of them too, that we know that they're solid on obedience. Like, we've seen them with the owners, we've seen them, sometimes we stay in touch with people and they'll send us videos or send us whatever, but then they come in and it's just like new environment, they're kind of geeking out, it takes them a few days to even settle in, or like new people. Like, there's some dogs that are one dog or one owner dogs, right? They love working with their owner, and then all of a sudden that owner goes away and it's like, do you know your name? Just a very different dog. And so I really do think there are a lot of factors, because there have been a lot of times where, especially in advanced, dogs come in and I'm seeing the dog for that first week. I'm like, golly, like, this not in control. So I'll make the phone call, like, hey, just to let you know, like, I really got to focus on obedience. Like, what? Like, we worked her tail off. Like, she was doing so good. Okay, well, like, I can only tell you what I'm seeing, right? And so I think there's some of that. I think there's naturally a transition period for sure. But yeah, that obedience is generally, the foundation that we're going to build everything off of. And, to your point, Zach, you can usually expedite it pretty quickly. Now, you're going to have times, like, Dave will laugh, but like, we've had times where we are literally the first people that put a leash on that dog. Have you ever seen, what's that show? What's the show that shoot 'em with the alligators?
Oh, Swamp People.
Swamp People, yeah. And they're alligator rolling on the line, like, no joke, right?
Yeah.
That is what that looks like.
You've got one in advanced right now. Bams was that way when we started work.
Yeah, gosh. She's not now. She's good now.
Yeah, she's
but
really good now.
She's really good.
yeah, she is really good now. But think about that. Like, you're introducing a tool at, 7
to 9 months.
Yeah, like, never had a leash on. That's crazy, And to us, like, there may be someone out there that just the situation just never called for it, right? Or like, was a tool that I know for us and most people listening to this would be laughing, being like, where would there ever be a situation the dog would be 9 months old and never had a leash on, right? Because this is the world we live in. But there are people that just have harnesses, right? Because of whatever reason, right? Like, we just come across it sometimes. But I'm telling you, like, you want to talk about a rodeo, my goodness, like, that gets out of control really quick. And so it's interesting, all the backgrounds, and walks of life that these dogs come from. But I think that's a good one. What else? Any other observations off that intermediate class coming in?
I remember you talking on a podcast a long time ago about, like, you can see the owner and then you can kind of figure out which dog goes with which owner. And, like, someone who's coming in and just, kind of dragging their feet, slow talk, whatever, usually the dog's the same way. But if someone comes in there and they're super excited and ready to go and like, hey, Zach, let's, the dog's usually the same way. And I'm kind of seeing that now.
Yeah, it is funny that these dogs really are products in their environment. And we have litter mates in the advanced class right now, prime examples of that, right? It is just really interesting how the situations that you grow them up in, it has a huge part of who they end up being as dogs.
Yeah, being in education for 26 years, I've been in enough parent-teacher conversations. I know the kid really well, and when the parents come in,
You understand
Yep.
why?
Now I get it. Whether it's good or bad, it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And these are just dogs. But
I'm
it's the
going to
same
guess
thing.
you're talking more bad than good.
Well, yeah. Well, some people may be listening here.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it is always interesting. So I want to talk about a situation that I had come up last week, and I think this would have been an easy panic button moment for many people training at home. But we had a dog named Bella, and now Bella is Zach. Describe Bella in one word.
Fire.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I mean she is hard charging, 100 miles an hour, go, and she's good at it. Like, you know, we're doing pile work right now. We're running patterns. And this dog is like all about it, like ripping up dirt as she's running, kind of thing. Great little dog. And man, we were clipping right along, and this was just another day. And we came out one day, and we stepped out on the pattern that she had run numerous days in a row, excelled at, and like it was like I was speaking Spanish. Like this dog was lost. I mean, she had no idea. She's looking up at me. She's trying to like lean into me. She's trying to like, and I'm like, "Are you hurt? Are you sick? Like, what is going on?" Right? And so I go through my whole check, and she pans out. She's not running any kind of a fever. She's eating. I check her out, whatever. I can't find anywhere she could potentially be hurt. Bring her out, just run around the yard. She's normal there. Like, couldn't figure it out, right? Like, complete meltdown. Wouldn't do anything. And then, like, even just on a simple pile. Like, and this is a pile that this dog has probably run 200 times. You know, back, run around in circles, like, all, like, completely lost. So, just naturally, just out of transparency, talk to the owner, be like, "Hey, like this happened today. Yeah, it's not ideal, but we'll see what happens of it. Yeah, I have a plan to work around it." The next day we came out, and she was completely back to her normal self. And I think the reason I tell that story, and she's been since she hasn't had any issue since. She's been fantastic. I think the reason I wanted to tell that story is that just like people, just like athletes, just like you and me, these dogs are going to have off days. Like they're going to have, like, how often have you had days where you're just like, I don't know, I'm just out of it today.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't put your finger on it, right? It wasn't because you got no sleep. It wasn't because you haven't eaten. It wasn't because you just can't put your finger on it, I do believe that these dogs go through that. And I do believe that was one of those days for that little girl because one, I just don't have another explanation for it. I will say the first thing that I looked at was, are we at a full moon? Because like it was one of those deals. If you've heard me talk about this, like I truly do believe that the full moon affects a vast number of dogs. Not all dogs, but we've just seen it too often. With we come into a full moon, it's like the kennel has gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and like you get a couple of the dogs that are still their normal selves, but the vast majority is just literally all over the place. And ever since I started talking about that, the number of people around full moon time that will send me messages saying, "Oh my gosh, I see it. It's incredible." And so I feel very strongly, there's something, but that wasn't it today or whatever it was last week or was that last week? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was when I was on my way down to Texas.
Yeah, that's right. So it was last week. I mean, it wasn't the case. So the only thing I can chalk it up to is off day. And I think the reason, again, that I want to tell this is because in this moment, like I could tell something's off. Like this is not her. It's not what she's been like. I don't think she's being defiant. She's not choosing to do the opposite of what I'm telling her to do. Something is just off. And this is where, to me, you step in and you go, look, as a handler, as an owner, I'm shutting this down. Something's off. You don't know what it is. Because I think if you force through that, okay, so like Zach, we were just talking about a client that was talking about forcing a pile, forcing a water, which is not something that we really like to do. But what if you did that here? I don't believe anything good would come of it. Because she'd be, losing it, going like, like if she knew what she's supposed to be doing, I promise you this dog would have been doing it. It was just for whatever reason she's off that day. It's no different than, Eric, I don't think you were on this trip. but we had all the strike team leaders down to Arkansas this year.
Yeah, I didn't make that one.
Okay, so Dr. Spoo actually talked about this on he and I did an Onyx masterclass here this week together. This week, gosh, all these weeks are like running together right now. And we talked about so he talked about hypothermia. So like heat stroke, he gets really nervous about heat stroke because he believes, as we've all seen, a dog will run. Well, I shouldn't say we've all seen. I've never seen a dog die of heat stroke, personally, but I've seen dogs go into it, and that's why I'm so paranoid about it. As you guys know, like we try to avoid the heat at all costs. We just aren't pushing the envelope, and that is just, but his thing on heat stroke was a dog will push themselves to kill themselves in the heat because it doesn't register. He said in hypothermia, it's less concerning for him because the dogs do give you signs. Okay. And I saw that. Okay. So we have Tucker. And so I called Dr. Spood during this whole thing. And that's why this story was in the forefront of his mind. He's now talked about this a couple times. But Tucker, he is, quite frankly, I think he's as good a dog as I have right now. I think he is an absolute all-star. I think he's everything that I'd want. But mega motor. And we had that big hunt. We had, I think, 12 guns or something like that. And it was cold, but it wasn't crazy cold. And what I didn't know is that in the box that he was sitting in, like, until I went kind of down there was a kind of like a swirl wind coming like from behind the blind that I wasn't feeling. So he's out of the water, and he's sitting there with that wind on him, getting cold. So he picked up, I don't know, probably 20 to 30 birds. And I'm out of the blind, running blinds with him. And he came back with one. I can tell he's a little slower than before, but it wasn't like lethargic or anything like that. I just was like, yeah, he's getting a lot of work in today. And he turned, I lined him up. I go, back. He didn't even flinch. And I was like, what is going on, right? So like I heel him, and like his head's down, and he's like moving, and like right there, I'm like, okay, what's wrong, right? So I started looking at him while like his gums are kind of getting white. You could tell his tail's now starting to tuck. Like he's shutting down. He's cold, and so anyway, we got him back, got him warmed up. Everything's great. Half hour later, he's totally himself, and he's back to normal. But after the emotion of it all, Dr. Spook called me back to check on him later that night or the next day. And he said, I'm going to use this example in some of my videos because I think too often in that case, someone would look at that and go, you son of a gun. Like when I say back, you go back, force him. Right. And he's like, in this case, because he knows Tucker, he's like, Tucker would have done that because he knows, like, he just has the heart. He's like, you could have killed him. I mean, think about that. Like, not everything, if something doesn't go our way, is defiance, is denial. You have to decipher what that is to handle. Now, I'm not saying, give him the house and just be like, hey, like, any time something goes wrong, like, just let him get away with it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is that you, as a handler, as an owner, you have to be able to differentiate the difference between this dog, there's something off, there's something not right, or you are being defiant. And then your response to that has to differ in the correct manner. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, I've been in similar last fall. Those of you who know Scout tests me like, no, go. And we had some cold day, and all of a sudden, boom, shut down. And I was done because I know what she can do. She wasn't being defiant. And I think you just got to know what your dog can do in those cases and read those signs, and especially in training too. If a dog isn't doing what you're asking, there's a reason for it. Is it because it's confused or it doesn't know what to do, or is it being defiant? And reading those cues will really help you as a handler be successful.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else you guys want to kind of jump in here with, or any thoughts on the week before we wrap this up?
I'm just excited to get us all, I started June 10th here, and this class here that just came in will be my first one from beginning to end. I mean, I'm really excited to work with this team from beginning to end. I'm going to finally see my first class go. I'll get to know the clients a lot better. you know, for me, it's like teaching. It's like a classroom, and I'm really excited to get these dogs to where we need them to go and produce a dog that the client's looking forward to. We got a lot of knowledge in this room between, you know, with Dave, with all the stuff he has, and then you being there with you guys you've seen so many things. So if Zach and I have questions, we can ask, you know, right away. And I've seen Dave take a dog, and if it's not doing what he wants it to do that day, hey, we're gonna come back to this. We're not gonna freak out about it. And I'm just really pumped up to see where this class goes with their intermediate that goes to October, and then we got a bunch of burden dogs coming in, and got some outstanding advanced dogs. So and we get along pretty good here too. So it's fun days. It's the hours go by fast, man. It's just a blast. I'm having a blast.
Yeah, that's all we talk about every day is like, we'll look down at our watch and it's 3:30 and we're like, where did the day go? You know, especially when we're starting early and you know, we're hammering through stuff, and then we're doing a drop off and we're doing this, and the hours just compound, and next thing you know, it's the end of the day. But it's been fun. Super pumped up.
Yeah. I'll kind of leave you guys, you know, with something that I've been thinking about, and I've been thinking about this quote or saying as I go into the day-to-day, and the day-to-day could be, you know, specifically with the advanced dogs, is we're trying to make these significant steps every day, and that quote is, let yesterday's ceiling be today's floor. Right, like, and that's kind of goes to your point from earlier, Zach, of like always getting, you know, that 1% better, but, you know, building on what you did the other day before, not getting complacent, not going through the motion, and, you know, making those steps. And I think, you know, I mean, I brought that into all aspects, you know, of my life. If yesterday's ceiling could be today's floor, you know, think about how much better I'm going to be. Like, that just became the new standard. You know, what I was reaching for and obtained is now the standard. You know, and now you can reach, you know, for the next branch. So I'll leave you guys with that. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Please shoot a message. Let me know, you know, what you thought here of the group setting. But I think it's going to add a lot of value from your perspective, from hopefully some change in voice. You don't have to just listen to me ramble on here for an hour. But hope you guys have a fantastic week, and go make tomorrow's floor today's ceiling. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to DUK, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.